All right. Good evening, everyone. I think folks are still loading in, but we'll go ahead and kick off for disrespect of everyone's time. So thank you all for joining as a whole. We're at top of the hour here at 7 and at 6, and we're planning to go till about 7 o'clock. I'll introduce myself. I'm DJ Norman. I've been on the Cal Poly board now for the CBA, which is the College of Business and Administration, for about 5+ years now. And happy to have many of my professional friends and colleagues on with me, all of which I can say I've worked with professionally in some capacity. So we'll do some quick intros there. But before I do that, a couple house cleaning things. If those who are joining the call can please go on mute so we have a nice clean line for the facilitators and ask questions. And then also, too, please leverage the chat line. So we're going to be asking questions of the panelists for the next, 35 minutes or so. And then after that, we're going to open it up to some open Q&A, both in the chat and as well as using just taking yourself off of mute. You can ask a live question of our panelists. So with that, any other house cleaning items before we get going? I think we're good there. Okay, so the other part is I am missing my partner in crime today. Her name is Lorena Ornelas Estrada, and she's been on the board now for 3 years. Her and I tag team to bring this event along with Andrea and many others, Melissa as well, to bring this to life. So thank you for helping us get to this point. Without further ado, I'll go ahead and introduce, or I'll ask the panelists to introduce themselves, starting out with Miss Christy Crystal.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Christy Crystal. I am the Senior Diversity Recruiting Strategist for Genentech, which is a division of Roche, biotech company and in pharma. I've been in HR for over 20 years. In the last about 10 years, I've spent specifically in D&I, focused on creating diversity inclusion strategy for my current organization. Prior to working for Genentech, I was with Amazon as the diversity and inclusion program manager for their consumer business, specifically a physical retail division. And then prior to that, I was with Starbucks as their global talent acquisition leader, supporting the enterprise for US, APAC, and EMEA. I'm glad to be here. I've worked with DJ at Coca-Cola and can't say enough great things about him. And I look forward to being able to answer any questions that you have in regards to the D&I space.
Awesome. Thank you, Christy. Shweta, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you, Christy. Christy and I have a lot in common as we were doing our intros. I bring with me about 2.5 decades of HR and talent acquisition experience. I've also worked for leading organizations like Meta, Amazon, and Airtel in past and across the globe. A lot of my focus also has been in building and designing diversity and inclusion programs like Return to Work and Veterans Hiring Program. I'm now co-founder of a company called Empowered Women of the World Initiative, and the entire focus is on coaching and mentoring women leaders, as I'm a ICF certified coach. Super excited to meet all of you and look forward to an engaging conversation today. Thank you, DJ.
Awesome. Thank you, Shweta. And now on to our esteemed Cal Poly graduates. So I'll start with Corey, and then we'll hand it off to Ari.
Hi, I'm Corey Gaither. I'm a graduate of Cal Poly Pomona, graduated in 2011 in sociology. I have about 7 years of experience in the DEI space. Originally, I started in the nonprofit field working with the Southern California Minority Supplier Development Council. It's a nonprofit organization that helps minority-owned businesses get supplier diversity contracts with Fortune 500 companies. After that, I moved on to the African American Board Leadership Institute, ABLE, which is an organization that helps African Americans, trains and places them on boards, corporate boards, nonprofit boards, and government boards. And then moved on to be a diversity sourcer at SpaceX, where I helped them diversify their talent pipeline, mechanical engineers, structural engineers, full stack engineers. And then my last position I held was a technical recruiter at Google.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone. I am super excited to be here with you all. I am a Cal Poly alum as well. I went to Collins College of Hospitality, but got a minor in HR as I found that passion late in my career. I graduated in 2018. I also know DJ from our time together at the Walt Disney Company. I also worked at Amazon under AWS and Twitch, building out a lot of their diversity recruiting. And I recently joined Activision Blizzard King as a program manager on their global early careers team, where I'm leading the diversity efforts focused on the MBA rotational program that we have. But I'm super excited to get back to our community and really talk about this. And the focus also is this is Women's History Month and everything too. So it's a great way to segue in to our going forward. DJ, was there anything else that you had for us?
Yeah, just a couple of quick housekeeping reminders again. Feel free to add any questions to the chat room. We'll be checking the chat room along the way. Keep your phones on mute if you can, so we'll keep a nice clean line. But now that you know how many people I've worked with and maybe starting to add up the numbers here, I'll hand it back to Ari so that he can facilitate the questions with our esteemed panel here. Thanks, Ari.
Thank you, DJ, and everyone. Corey, I want to start with you as a fellow alum and grad and diversity sourcer in the tech space. How have you seen companies encourage DEI in the workspace?
In a number of ways, I'll probably say the two biggest ways is support for nonprofit organizations that are already doing the work. There's great organizations like Women Who Code. One of my favorites that's close to my heart that I sourced a lot of talent from was Code 2040. It's an organization that helps full stack engineers, both black and brown, get the training that they need so they can be successful in the field of computer science and software engineering. We're seeing bigger presence at conferences like Afrotech, your legacy organizations like your NSBs. And then the second area that I'm seeing a lot of resources being poured into is employee resource groups. When I was with the African American Board Leadership Institute, we used to have so much support from organizations that wanted to develop leadership programs for their African American employee resource groups. So we would train them and then place them on boards, and then the company a lot of times would come around and actually pay their governance fee. So a lot of people don't know when you're on a board or nonprofit board, especially a big one, there's an annual fee that you have to pay, and it goes into different resources for the organization. A lot of times why people can't, or a lot of times why the board's not as diverse as it can be, is because that is an obstacle for a lot of individuals to pay. And so having organizations come in and actually develop leadership programs for their employees that can actually grow their employees' networking skills, actually expand their network, their skill set. If I'm in the tech space and I get on a board like, let's say, Afrotech board, that's now allowing me to meet other individuals of color that are working in that space. So I'm also improving my network, but then also bringing my company to the forefront by being an individual on that board representing that company. And so when that organization needs some extra funds for a program for youth or some community outreach, I can now, from my position, go to my company and ask, hey, I'm on the board, I sit on there, you guys trained me in this position to be a leader. And those funds definitely do make it to nonprofits more so than they used to. The third space that I always consider a pillar of DEI too is supplier diversity, and that's probably the only place where I haven't seen a lot of movement, is working with those minority-owned companies when you need catering, when you need security service, when you need additional IT service or staffing service. I haven't seen supplier diversity grow in the tech space, but in those other two spaces, I've definitely seen growth and a lot of resources poured into that.
Thank you for sharing. Just a quick follow-up, Corey. For those that may not know how to get involved with those organizations, what's the best way for someone to enter and support those efforts?
Absolutely. Definitely, I would say with your NSBs, they have a professional chapter usually. So after you graduate, you can still stay engaged with NSB, and then also you can, there's liaisons that will put you into different chapters collegiately if you wanted to be a mentor or speak. We also have, you can also go to usually sometimes it's HR or PR, and see what organizations the company is already working with. And so that's an easy transition into getting the contact information for that organization. And then also just going to a website of an organization that you admire and just reaching out via email, you will be surprised the response you'll get because they're always looking for help. And, we definitely want to keep these organizations active because as a recruiter, they can definitely help our talent search be a lot easier if they already have, an incubator for fresh, especially early career talent.
Great. Thank you so much, Corey. Sweeta, I'm going to go to you next here. As a tenure HR and recruiting leader and co-founder of eWow, an organization dedicated to empowering women, what advice would you give to women of Cal Poly Pomona students and future graduates?
Oh, thank you for asking that, Ari. And this is something which is close to my heart. I think first and foremost that I would say is have the confidence. I think a lot of women leaders, and specifically when I coach, deal with imposter syndrome. And that's something which is alarming. In fact, I was just reading a recent KPMG study, and it actually said that 75% of women leaders actually deal with imposter syndrome, which means a lot of time they start attributing their success to luck or feeling that they have reached there somehow and they don't deserve it to be there. I think that's very important for us to navigate because I think women are naturally great multitaskers. And there's a lot of focus today in terms of working in organizations where you have to deal with ambiguity, multitask, and those are natural skills that we bring, onto the table automatically. But we try to negate all those good things that we have and our attributes, considering that we don't want to reach out to our network. Another thing that I always recommend is identify your sponsors. And there's a difference between a mentor and a sponsor. And a lot of people don't understand how sponsors are different from their mentors. Your sponsors are typically leaders who are 2 or 3 levels above you in your organization and cross-functional teams that you work for. And they are the ones who are advocates for you when you are not present in the room. And it needs strategic efforts to be able to identify who these sponsors are, volunteering with them and offering them your support to be able to solve some complex problems in the organizations. And then you'll see the difference in terms of how these sponsors talk about you when you are not in the room and people are looking for larger leadership roles and responsibilities. So definitely, that's very, very important in terms of identifying your sponsors. Last but not the least, I think a lot of women leaders shy away from even applying for roles where they feel that, they are not 100% fit. Right. And I think in a latest study, they found out that, men will typically go ahead and apply for roles even if they fit 60% of the role requirements. And that's again going back to the same thing. And I'm looking at the chat and people are saying, confidence is definitely an issue. Imposter syndrome is definitely an issue. And yes, that derails us a lot because we are not there to walk with confidence and say, I can do this. So go ahead, negotiate harder when you get a job offer. Go ahead and apply for roles that you want to apply for. You'll be surprised that even after so many efforts that organizations are making today, women still earn 83 cents versus $1 that every man, earns today. So this is where, we as women leaders need to come together as a tribe and advocate for each other. And that's why, there was so much focus on Empowered Women of the World initiative. And we're doing a virtual conference on 22nd of April. So highly encouraging women leaders to join us there. So I see a question there, so I want to quickly address that. How do we deal with the imposter syndrome? I think the first and the foremost thing as a coach that, if I wear my coach hat, I'll always say, don't brush away those feelings. It's important for you to recognize that you're dealing with imposter syndrome. And the moment you start realizing that, then the next steps become easy for you to navigate. The next step, of course, is to start changing the way you approach failures. Failure is inevitable. We've worked, and DJ and Christy would vouch for it. People who have worked in corporate, for a long time. We always learn, so much through our failures. And it's important for you to fail in life so that you can see where your skill gaps are and what opportunities are there for you to move forward. So the day you change your perspective in terms of looking at failures differently, it becomes much easier for you to be able to navigate. And then, it's next steps in terms of introspecting. What can I do differently? Lean on your network, lean on your coach, lean on your people that you trust, and help navigate that particular situation. And then you'll see you'll not make those mistakes again.
Thank you, Sweta. And I think talking about the pay, I think is important, especially today. I think it's equity pay day is what I was seeing a lot of posts and talks about. So it definitely ties in to the current themes of going on. And there is a lot of work that still needs to get done. You're absolutely right. I did see another question in the chat from Barati as well. I don't know if you want to answer that, Sweta, or if you saw it. It was about tell me if you don't have imposter syndrome and are confident, but how do you navigate through gatekeeping? Doesn't allow women of color to C-suite positions.
Yeah. And Bharti, this is why I say those sponsors are so important for you to have who can advocate for you. And the difference between your mentor and sponsor is that your sponsor is somebody who is overly invested in you. They will see your success as their success. And that's why breaking those barriers, I have always, been a person who would raise hand for any cross-functional projects, because I think that's where I learn the most, and that's where I bring in my expertise onto the table. If you look at my career, I started my career with actually sales, then moved to customer services, then into HR. And within HR, I think I've done almost everything under the sun, because I truly believe that, if you're learning agility and if you have that ability to learn and unlearn, it's easier for you to do any role and anything that you want to accomplish in life. When I started, looking out for opportunities, I said, okay, TA and HR is what I already know. How can I leverage my superpowers and move forward? I designed a LinkedIn learning course recently with LinkedIn and recording a second one with them. So I think it's also about keeping that growth mindset and working, with your sponsors to be able to find the next opportunity for you. I always believe that you can only get when you give. So go ahead, volunteer, and go ahead and network, go ahead and offer your support to people. And then you will actually build bonds and network, which, will take you places. So be open to that. And I think that will automatically happen. Gatekeeping, I agree completely. It's a glass ceiling and it's difficult to break. And that's why I always encourage networking, networking, and networking. If you have your tribe, they will advocate for you.
Can I interject also?
Please.
DJ knows I'm not at a loss for words. So I totally agree with Shweta, and the networking piece is really key. As a Black woman who's been through leadership for Fortune 500 companies my entire career, it is really important to have that networking, regardless of race, but really have that networking and that mentor or sponsor. I can 100% agree with you. How I was able to work at Coca-Cola with DJ was through networking for my VP at Home Depot who worked with DJ. And I was able to connect with DJ, and I had known him. Again, building the relationships, your network, being in different groups within LinkedIn, and groups that are of interest to you, or where you want to pursue your career is really key. And then, reaching out to those individuals that have the background or experience that you would like to have, and saying, can I have, an exploratory conversation with you? I just want to learn a little bit about your journey. And that is okay. And that's crucial. That is really crucial as you move forward in your career. Sorry to take your time, but I just wanted to interject and say that that's really important.
I think we are both talking the same language of saying networking is important, identifying your sponsors is important, taking risks in your career is important, and giving before you take is important. I think those are the 3 or 4 key takeaways. For people who are interested, I'm really advocating read the book Fast Track Your Leadership Career. It will give you great nuggets on everything that I'm talking about.
And just real quick, Ari, before we go to the next question, Sweta, if you could add in, the name of that book in the chat, and as well as you mentioned an event that's coming up. If you want to place that in the chat too, that'd be great.
Took what I was going to say, DJ. Love it. Great minds think alike here. Awesome.
All right.
No, I do have a follow-up for you, Sweeta, though. And can you explain what the A and DEIA stand for?
A actually stands for accessibility, right? And a lot of organizations today, like Google, Microsoft, actually focus a lot on accessibility. What I mean by accessibility is when you start looking at your product, your services, your environment, are your product, services, environment, your policies inclusive enough for people to actually um, uh, bring their whole self in, and it's applicable to everybody irrespective of their abilities. So people with disabilities, do you have the opportunity to include them in your workforce and the way you perceive your product and services as well? And you'll see a lot of organizations like I know Google or Apple or Microsoft have these things like screen readers or voice recognition systems or the closed captions which are available in their products and services, so that it becomes accessible to everybody in the in the workforce. And that's very, very important. Some organizations also like to focus on accessibility because it's a legal compliance thing in US as well as in UK and some other countries of the world. It's important for you to be inclusive, and that accommodation needs to be there. But I think it's not just about the physical accommodation. It is about that inclusivity that comes along with it, and how can we ensure that each of our suppliers, customers, employees feel included in your product and services and the tools that you're building. I think more and more as leaders, we need to also encourage that, specifically now that we are working remote, and we're working with hybrid teams. How do we create that culture wherein people have the access to the right information, right tools, right technology to be able to do their jobs well?
Thank you for that. I think a lot for me this year, I'm using the term psychological safety in terms of accessibility and thinking, and how can you
Absolutely.
create that at work in these hybrid environments. So love the information. Christy, got some questions here for you. As a DEI leader in retail, biotech, and consumer products, how have you seen accessibility addressed across the companies you have worked for?
Well, twofold. And I'll take it from internal and external. So from an internal standpoint, yes, there's legal reasons why you need to have certain things from an accessibility standpoint. So for example, from hiring and being able to have accommodations or accommodations team to be able to offer assistance with applying. From an external standpoint, which most businesses that I've worked with across the board focused on the consumer, the customer, and creating tools, devices, if you will, like Amazon, to be able to help the folks with disabilities, or and really focus on the word now ableism, if you will. So I've seen a lot of effort across the organizations really putting their time and effort on the consumer side into creating a product or creating tools or platforms to be able to become inclusive of and have a larger customer base that they're able to connect with. From a Genentech standpoint, we are now working on the D&I strategy that will be a part of our 2025 D&I initiatives, and that will be, and we're working on that strategy now, and that is in regards to ensuring that both our internal as well as our external or our patients have the tools and resources to be able to access our product. And then from a HR perspective, that we have all of the tools and resources for our current employees as well as our future employees to be able to be successful, to be able to feel that they belong within the organization, and that's huge. So I've seen it across all of the organizations that I've worked for. I think in the last 3 years, the focus has been on gender and ethnicity. Now, I think what I've seen is, in addition to really enforcing accessibility and really honing in on what the needs are for our employees, as well as, again, expanding on the needs of our customer base. And I see that across the board. Amazon does a great job. You've got Alexa and the capabilities of Alexa. Also, they do a great job as far as with their internal employees and being able to provide the tools and platforms for like voice recognition and communication for those who have difficulty speaking. So very much a tech company at the forefront, creating products both internally and externally for their employees as well as their customers. And then at Genentech, and we are doing the same and ensuring that we, as one of our pillars, transforming society, that we are looking at our communities and being able to service the communities of individuals that need additional assistance. I'm part of the team that is working to create that the strategy and the plan moving forward. So I'm happy to say that I see some progression. So I know my answer is long-winded, but I just kind of wanted to give an overview of where we were at, what the focus has been, and in the last 3 years, and then where we are going moving forward.
Thank you. As a follow-up, what strategies have you seen companies use to identify potential barriers to equitably career outcomes?
Goodness, I've seen organizations actually look at overall job job descriptions and the essential functions of the job, and ensuring that regardless of ability, you'd be able to individuals with disabilities are able to perform these jobs, and what tools or resources will they need to be able to in addition, will they be able to do these jobs? So I've seen a lot of work within not my specific department, but like our accommodations team, really looking at what we can do to be more inclusive, to allow individuals the opportunity to come work for our organization, specifically speaking of Genentech. And again, I speak from Amazon. They're doing great things from an accommodations and a team as well. And they're really at the forefront of really being able to bring in and the reach out to organizations that focus on individuals with disabilities. And so those are some of the things that I'm seeing right now.
Let me also add here, if I can, Christy, of course, there's a lot of focus on accommodation and creating psychologically safe workplace for employees. But there are other trends, which are also making jobs more accessible to people who are coming in from very diverse backgrounds. And, some of the work that we did at, Meta could actually speak to it. like return to work program where people had taken career breaks and we are bringing those people back into workforce, or moving towards skill-based organizations wherein the degree requirement is no longer mandatory, and that's all part of accessibility and inclusion, where organizations are letting go of the degree requirements to say, hey, if you bring the relevant experience, and I think you would vouch for it, both Ari and Christy, because Amazon really had that grounded saying either you have a bachelor's degree or you bring X years of experience. So they were really pioneers in that. But a lot of companies today are following that. In fact, there's a huge focus today on removing the degree requirements and just focusing on skills and following the skill-based methodology to not only hire people but also develop them. And I think these are wonderful initiatives which are happening today, which did not exist when at least I started working. Is for a longest time, we always thought about DEI as focus on getting maybe certain section of people into the workforce, whether it was based on race or ethnicity or gender. But now, I mean, it's just exploding, and every day the more you read, the more you get to know the wonderful work that various organizations are doing. Yeah, I think DJ raised his hand, so DJ, over to you.
I was going to add one that I remembered from Meta as well that was really unique. As we looked at our early career talent, typically you'll see, a lot of companies say, hey, we're going to go after, the top 25 schools in the country. And Ari, I know what you're shaking your head on this one for, because that in itself, right, is really a barrier, right, to a lot of good talent getting into, a variety of organizations. And so one of the things that it wasn't my doing, it was one of our early career leaders who was doing it, but to tout him, being able to influence the leaders to go off script, right? And to, instead of going on campus to find talent, but really scouring and taking a page out of executive search to say, where does the talent reside at the early career level? Some of it resides in junior colleges. Some of it resides in the top 200 schools instead of the top 20 schools. And so what we did see is a significant increase in diversity by doing that. And we really reached out to students that would typically not even have an opportunity to participate. I think the other piece was just allowing some of those internship roles to be remote so that people didn't have to travel to get the experience. So I'll leave it at that. But that was a unique approach.
Yeah. And did you remember the Discover Production Engineering program, which was completely focusing on hiring people from boot camps, so if they didn't have the degree, but they had, self-learned, the entire intent of the program was bring those people into the workforce. And that's why I always say, when you start looking at job opportunities, don't just look for traditional roles, also look for organizations which are doing some great work in bringing people from diverse backgrounds together, because you may have an opportunity to get into the dream role that you want because the organization is ready to take risk on you.
Agree. And just to echo, at Amazon Web Services, I was doing their military recruiting, and we would take folks and upskill them into software developer engineers, knowing they had the skill set to learn with little to no degree, and bringing them into the Amazon L4 to L5 level and giving them something equitable and things of that nature are huge. And seeing some of the chatter return to work for people and extended breaks are huge. And that is what the focus is, more individual. As someone who just got their MBA from USC last year, I'll still argue that you need an MBA for any job or any, let's trying to be a doctor, that's a doctorate, right? Or something else, or lawyer, you need something legal behind it. I will fight any other hiring manager that is a degree technically required, right? And that's someone in even early careers talent, to DJ's point, is looking at the other opportunities out there in different organizations to find the right talent, to make it equitable for all, because the talent's there. Does anyone else have questions? We do have some other questions we can definitely ask the panelists, but I want to make sure if anyone else in the audience, you're more than happy to come off mute if you want, or write it in the chat.
Absolutely, no. And I think let's go ahead and ask a few of the what we call bonus round questions, since we have our esteemed panelists here with us tonight. So go ahead and go through one of those to give folks maybe another moment to think about any questions they may have. As you can see, the panel is not scared, right, to kind of tackle any questions. So feel free to jot anything down there in the chat.
So I'll put it out there in the meantime. This is for anyone, all three of you, and even DJ, please chime in. But what is one trend you have seen evolve in the last year that's happened within this space?
I'll speak on it briefly. One of the trends, or maybe a couple of trends that I've seen, is definitely the increase of remote opportunities, which has really helped a lot of companies increase their DEI numbers. There was a great article, and I can't remember who wrote it, but it spoke on how remote jobs are now helping um, underrepresented talent to feel more accepted at work because they didn't have to deal with the microaggressions and sometimes the cliques that can form uh, at work. Another trend that I'm seeing to kind of break nepotism, sometimes you see, and I see it at, well, mostly you see it when you're recruiting for law firms, a lot of nepotism, but even in other spaces, is connecting candidates with hiring managers that they could possibly relate to. There's even some companies that are doing mock interviews now to kind of get people used to the process because oftentimes when we network and like you've talked about previously, sourcing from those top schools, those top school alumni that work at that job are going to go ahead and be able to connect with their early career alum that are looking to get inside information on what the interview process looks like. But if you have those mock interview processes, if you have those early calls that hiring managers can talk to those individuals from diverse backgrounds and kind of talk to them, give them confidence in the interview process, you definitely see better results. So I'm seeing that trend be very helpful when it comes to DEI recruitment specifically.
Christy or Sveta, anything to add?
I will echo what Corey actually said. And again, going back to one key trend that I'm seeing is focusing on skills versus focusing on degree requirements. A lot of organizations today are, opening up to that idea. And I think a lot of business leaders are opening up to that idea as well of saying, okay, if I find the right talent, not only for today, but also what I need for future, I'm ready to take a bold bet. And I think that's a beautiful trend to come, today. I know as much as we started off with remote works, a lot of companies have now started moving towards hybrid rather than 100% remote. I'm seeing that reverse trend also coming in. But I think it's important for us to know that DEI is actually a journey, and it takes a village for us to be able to be successful in that domain. For all people who are passionate about DEI, know that this is not for people who want quick results. It's not a destination, it's a journey that you have to travel, and there are a lot of things that we have to learn and unlearn in the process as we start building our diversity strategy. I think a lot of change that I've seen today is the visibility to the DEI data. I think a lot of organizations in last 4 or 5 years have actually spent time and energy building dashboards, building reports wherein they can pull out the diversity and inclusion data and present it to their leadership team, because that unconscious bias continues to creep in. And it's not just about finding the diverse talent, it is also about how do we develop and retain them, going forward. And that's why being that spokesperson, even as a business leader, as a HR leader, as a DEI leader, sitting in those meetings and saying, let's look at our promotion data, let's look at our attrition data and see where are we losing talent. I think we're looking at DEI from a very different lens from what we used to look at it 5 years back. So it's not just about attracting but also developing the right talent and retaining the right talent.
I have to concur with everything that has been said. And Shweta, when you talk about, it is a journey, it truly is. And when I create the strategy for the organization, each division of the organization, I need to meet the leaders where they're at. Everybody's at a different level within their diversity and inclusion journey. And so therefore, those conversations are not generalized. It's really focused on where that leader is and where that entire team is, and really then working on creating the strategy, because everyone is at a different level or a different area or level in their D&I journey. I agree with Corey in regards to the different the resources and the that are out there. And it's really just important that, we have my keyword is access. So once you have access, then you're able to have that inclusion. So access will get you that seat at the table, that inclusion, and then the belonging piece. So that's how I look at it when looking at DEI, specifically in the area that I've been talking about today, accessibility, but across the board.
And Ari, can I just take a quick second? I see Lorena on now. Just wanted to make sure everybody knew Lorena. Welcome, Lorena. I know you're having a busy day today, so thanks for joining. But just wanted to give you a quick shout out for helping to bring this event tonight to life.
Thanks, DJ. I'm glad I finally made it. I'm glad to be here.
Good to see you.
Welcome, Lorena. Thank you all for the insight. I saw a question in the chat I do want to address from Yvette. And her question was, what recommendations do you have for DEI professionals that have been laid off due to layoffs or budget cuts? What recommendations do you have for upskilling, networking, resume improvements?
Yeah, I can take a
Great
stab
question.
Yeah, great question, first of all. So I think 2 or 3 important things. It is unfortunate that, the organizations are looking at it slightly myopically, and laying off DEI people disproportionately, but this is what it is, right? I think I have always believed that if you're passionate about some things, you will find opportunities for yourself. And I always say, look at your transferable skills. What did you learn in those DEI roles that you can transfer into other opportunities if today organizations are not focusing on hiring DEI professionals, right? We are great program managers. We are great at building great communities. And those are some of the things that we can leverage. We are great communicators. So there are multiple opportunities that you can look at in marketing, community building, or other places that you can find your transferable skills. Program management, definitely, for sure. How do you go about networking? I think, as I earlier said, networking is a conscious effort that you need to make. And one of the common mistakes that a lot of people do is they start networking when they need their network, which means today I need a job, so let me start networking. And networking actually has to be a continuous, process, which means, I must say we are blessed today because we have all the social media that did not exist 15, 20 years back when we started our career. You are virtually being able to connect to so many people that you admire, that you like, and not necessarily meet using and leveraging these social media platforms. So I think it's important for us to be a little active on social media to find out what people are today talking about. And if you resonate with somebody, never shy away from reaching out to them and connect. And I think Christy made a beautiful point earlier saying, go ahead and block some time and do a virtual coffee chat with them to say, I'm just interested and I'm just curious. If you start approaching networking with the mindset that I have to find a job, it's going to be difficult for you to crack it, right? So first, be genuinely interested and enthusiastic about what people are sharing. What do you like in their profile? What do you like in their journey? What do you like in their blogs? So it takes an effort for you to be able to find what motivates you to connect with those people and then reach out to them. Again, what can you give before you can offer, ask for something? What can you support them with? It's so important to give before you ask for anything else. And last but not the least, have the confidence. Again, networking takes time and it will need time for you to nurture those relationships. If you reach out to somebody and somebody helps you, great. If somebody does not help you, it's okay to wait and pause and continue to build your think tank as you work with them, rather than getting disappointed that this person did not respond to me. It's okay to send a reminder again. And if they don't respond, so what? Move on to the next one. There are a lot of people who are genuinely interested in supporting you.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I agree with everything you said, and I just wanted to add that I move in and out of D&I. I'll be in a D&I position, then I'll be in a recruitment position. Like you said, just using your transferable skills. Most people in the DEI space are great program managers. You have to manage a lot in that space. There's also an HR background component to that you can look for positions. I would also say get involved with the Alumni Association. I'm involved with the Alumni Association. It's helped me be a program manager on events and get that skill set, meet other alumni that are in the DEI space, are in the recruitment space, or in the program space. Having that network that's easy to be contacted or accessible to you because you share that commonality of being Broncos has definitely helped me find other positions. When I got laid off from Google, I was able to pivot within a couple of weeks and find a new position. So it's just like you said, you just have to continuously network and never stop. So if you can find something that you love to do on the side and it keeps you engaged with other people and it keeps you active, it can really be helpful when you do hit those hard times and you need to pivot and find a new position.
Loving this information, and +1 to everything that has been said here with it. We have another question in the chat from Rita, or more of a comment, is curious. Navigating resistance in the news in certain states, what do you think would be the best tool of advice from your perspective to counter?
Are we talking about Florida?
I mean, there's that. I think the Tennessee news.
Okay. Oh,
I don't know.
Hard.
Maria, if you want to elaborate more, but Christy, it sounds like you want to answer in the time being.
I'm just trying to, we're getting resistance on what if she could, or if the person could elaborate on the question.
Sure. You see this news in Chronicles or in higher ed, and I'm sure we all have read those news being in the same field. So there are colleagues in those states, and, with elections coming up and stuff, there has to be a strategy too, right? And again, it cannot be a reactive strategy that we might come up with. So just picking your brain, if we were collectively to see our future in this field and how we can still do DEI work at our colleges, what suggestions will you have to counter such things which sort of derails you? And the thing is, you have been doing all this work, and that derailing that is happening in these places is it affects the success that has been made, right? Because you have to again start these programs when you can. So yeah, just picking your brain on that.
I would say one thing that I believe is that DEI has to kind of start with the strategy of the company. It can't just be a department. It has to be implemented and embedded. So when I was in DEI, I learned all these principles. I learned, I read all the articles, read all the studies. And so when I'm in a technical recruiter's role, I'm still taking those principles with me. I'm still, my colleague may be searching the top schools. I'm searching all the Cal States because I know that California is a quote unquote minority majority state. There's top talent here. It's, they're not going to have to relocate, but I'm still taking those principles into every position that I go to. So with a lot of DEI professionals having their jobs threatened at the moment or, affected by the layoff, when you do fall into those other positions that are outside of that space, still take those principles with you, because it's harder to get rid of individuals that are embedded everywhere within the company instead of being just, located in one location. If that office closes and all the DEI efforts are gone, no, everyone should always take those principles with you, those pillars, and implement them in whatever position you are, even on a campus. And I know they've taken, I forget what school recently got rid of their DEI strategy on their website, and it looks like they may be getting rid of the office. But if the professors are taking those principles with them, the president, the provost, everyone, then it's harder for those powers that be to push back against that and really implement it. And I would also encourage people to let you know that this has been around for a long time. Supplier diversity got signed in 1964 in the Civil Rights Act. DEI has had several different names. It was community outreach one time. It's starting to change its name now. I've seen organizations no longer use HR, it's people operations. So we're going to continue to see name changes, but those principles and those people that are doing that work are still going to be around in some capacity.
Yeah, Corey, I love what you said, and I'll just add one thing onto it. the nomenclature of being a diversity business partner has just come in last 4 or 5 years. And as you said, we were always doing this work, and if you have that mindset, irrespective of what your title is, you will still continue to strive to make that change. And I remember, at Meta, we have this program called Return to Work program. And this was not started by HR or DEI people or anybody. It was a hiring manager who came back from maternity leave and said, now I'm dealing so much with imposter syndrome and I'm struggling to find my feet into the same organization that I've worked for 5 years. And I'm sure there must be other companies which may not be providing that opportunity to others. And she kick-started this idea that let's start by hiring leaders who took breaks to take care of their family and want to come back into workforce. So I think, as you said, it's about the mindset. It does not matter what your title is. It's about what you can do to make that impact. Tomorrow, if you are let gone off because of your DEI role and you're joining a program management role or you're joining a recruiting role, can you adopt those principles to find the diverse talent? How can you include diversity, inclusion, belonging, accessibility into your programs that you're designing? And can you be active participants in processes that impact people within your organization, to highlight that inclusion and unconscious bias are the topics that we should talk about in sitting in those promotion conversations, sitting in those programs or interview panels that we are designing. I think it will all come into place. I'm looking at this as an area of hope and opportunity, and not as an area of getting depressed that we don't have opportunities now. Because if our skill set is such that we will be able to make an impact wherever we are.
And I concur with everything that has been said. I was not a D&I leader. I started off, yes, in HR, but I always had D&I. I led with D&I at the forefront, looking at teams, talking to leaders, looking at the makeup of their teams, whether, as an HR manager or as a TA leader, and looking, because we are, our organizations are there to make a profit of some sort. And who are our customers? And we want to ensure that we are, from an internal standpoint, reflecting what our customer base is. And if we don't have that within our organization, we need to do something about it. Because when you're talking about diversity, you're talking about creating a product, or you're talking about doing something for our customer, then our customer looks 25,000 different ways, right? And so what are we doing as an organization to ensure that their voice is heard, that our teams reflect our customer base? And those are the conversations that I was having even before I had a DEI title. And so I think that's really crucial. So you can do the D&I work without having the D&I title, without having to be in HR. If you're a leader, a program manager, a director in another area, business area, then you have a tremendous opportunity to lead with D&I in the forefront, ensuring every voice is heard and ensuring that you have a diverse team and peers to be able to share their perspectives to contribute. So it's crucial.
Yeah. Hey, Ari, there was one question too. I don't know if we got to yet. It kind of got buried in the chat, but it was about assessments. Are there assessments that any of our panelists would call out that are good for professionals to use to see where they're at on that DEI spectrum, to see if there are biases, which we all have, but is there ways for us to identify our readiness to really go into that DEI journey? And I think I threw out one. It was unconscious bias, which is more of a learning course. I wouldn't call it an assessment, but I'm not sure if you all have seen any specific assessments.
I remember, I'm sorry, I can't recall the name top of my mind, but I can, send it across DJ's way and he can share it with the larger community later on. But I do know that there is a survey which has come into place where it talks about, your unconscious bias and where are you in that paradigm. So I can't recall the name. Having said that, I think there are a lot of tools today available, like, you have tools wherein you can evaluate the job description language and find out whether you're using inclusive language or not, right? And those are some of the tools that organizations have started to adopt. But frankly, you know what? I'm not a great fan of assessments, purely because I believe that we are trying to substantiate what we already know, right? Whether we we use the assessments or not, we know that unconscious bias today exists within the organization. We know that accessibility is a challenge, inclusion is a challenge, right? Now, great if these tools are available, but if these tools are not available, I think our IQ is enough to tell us where the gaps are and how we can bridge those gaps, moving forward.
Very good. So I think, are we down to 4 minutes? I don't know if you see it in the chat.
Yeah, I saw that thing. I was going to ask that. So thank you for covering that. We don't have any more, I think, near the end. Do we want to give everyone a closing statement and we can wrap it up? Or did you want me to go to one more of those bonus questions?
No, I mean, I think this is a good time, unless someone has a burning question. If so, please drop it in the chat and we'll try to get to it. But I just want to take a moment to say thank you to Christy, Ari, Sweta, Corey for this amazing panel. I don't think I've typed this many what I call golden nuggets in a minute. And so hopefully you all are seeing those. I'd also encourage folks to connect via LinkedIn, right? With this panel and with all the board members that are on the call as well, Lorena, myself, and others that are on this particular call. That's how this network works, right? Network doesn't come out of anywhere; it comes out of some action, and so that's the action that I would pose to you that want to continue this conversation. But really appreciate the engagement of the attendees. I think that's been really cool to see, and the engagement has really driven this call as a whole. But Ari, if you want to take us through some last reflection points, and then we can adjourn.
Yeah.
Harry, before you go in there, can I quickly add? I just remembered Harvard actually has a DEI self-assessment tool. So if you go on harvard.edu, you should be able to take a self-assessment test there. Sorry, go ahead.
No, thank you for that. And we'll make sure we get that added into all the info sent out. Appreciate that. But no, thank you, like DJ said, to everyone being here. Thank you again to DJ and Lorena for organizing this for us, for Cal Poly Pomona and the DI Network. You're already starting network by being here. This starts the network. So know that. And it's quickly reaching out to anyone on this call or anyone and continuing that conversation. And the biz, I would just say real quick, and then I want to pass it over. We'll go just we initially did our conversation with Corey, Sweta, and Christy, is empower yourself and celebrate your own wins and be proud of you. A lot of times we're congratulating others, but make sure you celebrate you and everything that you accomplish. I think is key, especially in this state of everything going on. Yeah, Corey, anything you have for the audience?
I just want to thank the Cal Poly Business Alumni Chapter for the great work they continue to do, empowering students, letting them know about different career paths, helping them with resume building, job searching, and networking. So thank you for having this event. I really appreciate your chapter and the Alumni Association as well for housing the chapters and allowing Cal Poly Pomona alumni to network, get to meet each other, continue having events like this, continue networking, and thank you, everyone.
Last words, Christy or Sweta?
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, DJ, for the invite. Thank you for allowing me to, share my story. And, again, as those of you who are wanting to get into the field of DEI, it's, again, just, keep doing you. Think about DEI and do DEI wherever you are at. Just put that in the forefront. The networking piece, I'm going to reiterate that. Literally network. and not when you need it immediately. Do it now, and it does take work, and as far as the reach outs and everything, but it's worth it. And I have to say that because I get a lot of emails and messages, wanting to connect because they need a job versus wanting to connect just to have a conversation about, whatever, my company or my journey. And I'm more than willing to have the conversations so that when and if you need that assistance, I can help you further. I think that's really important. And I think a lot of folks in HR or as recruiters or just in the HR umbrella, they get contacted constantly, and especially now, just due to the climate, a lot of reductions in force across tech period. We're getting inundated with a lot of, okay, do you have any jobs versus, I've already been connected with you. Let's connect. Let's have a conversation. So if anything, take that, run with it, and keep plugging away, because this is really important work. It is a journey that will, continue this. And yeah, to me, it's at its infancy, and it's just going to continue. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Anything for
Yes,
you?
I'll just say identify your superpowers and identify your sponsors. Keep your learning hat always on. If you have the growth mindset, there is no stopping for you. So as I say, our logo for EVOW is keep empowering the world. So I'm saying keep empowering the world.
Awesome. Well, there you have it. Lorena, any last words before we log off here from your perspective?
No, just thank you everyone for accepting the invitation, for coming and teaching so much, all these golden nuggets that we can all use and use every day. So again, thank you.
Last reminder, we are recording this session. I know Andrea is going to get that sent out to all of us. So appreciate everyone's time tonight. Thanks for sparing some of your time to listen and to engage. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks.